afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the RotoBaller Radio Fantasy Football Preview Series. I'm your host, Anthony Aniano, here with you today to discuss tight ends. Tight ends maybe you avoid, tight ends that provide value late in drafts, but nonetheless a position that some people have very different views about come fantasy football draft day. Guys, don't forget, head over to rotoballer.com and check out everything we have there. The main page, premium package, expert chats, you name it, rotoballer.com does it for you. Whether you play in season-long or DFS formats or both, okay, rotoballer.com has you covered. Whether it's football, baseball, basketball, MMA, esports, NASCAR, PGA, or sports betting, head over to rotoballer.com and check it all out. The free aspect of it, as well as the premium packages. Sign up for the Fantasy Football Premium Package now. Use the promotional code ACES, save yourself some money, and let that guide you all the way to championship glory. All right, everybody. Let's talk tight end position. Now, I'm not going to sit here and talk Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, Kittle. People are excited about the rookie Pitts. I get that. Mark Andrews, and then even TJ Hawkinson now moving into the second-tier conversation, just really due to the lack of support Jared Goff is going to have in Detroit. Now, last season, there were 11 tight ends in the league who played 10 or more games and averaged 10 or more fantasy points. There were 13 overall. CJ Uzomah of the Cincinnati Bengals, but he only played 2 games before tearing his Achilles. And George Kittle averaged over 10 fantasy points, over 15 fantasy points, but only played 8 games last season. So tight end was a very thin position. Barely in a 12-team league did every team have a 10-point-per-game tight end. And that's kind of my philosophy at the position is I wait it out. I don't, very rarely do I have Kelce, Kittle, Waller. Maybe I'll grab Mark Andrews round 5 if he slides a little bit. I will wait out the tight end position. I will stream the tight end position, and I'll find value, or try to find value, late in the draft. And you could have done that last year with my first player here, Robert Tonyan of the Green Bay Packers. He's currently going as tight end 10, and I understand why. The fear is the touchdown regression. 11 touchdowns. Okay, this is a player last season who had 59 targets, 52 receptions. Essentially caught everything thrown his way. The problem was he maybe didn't have enough thrown his way with only those 59 targets. But he was a huge red zone favorite of Aaron Rodgers, and now Aaron Rodgers is back in Green Bay. So for him to be a tight end 10 seems like an undervalued play, in my opinion. 3.3 receptions per game, 36.6 yards per game, averaged 11 fantasy points per game. He was third overall in fantasy points last season in a PPR format at the tight end position. Okay, expect a little touchdown regression, but not much. He's a red zone favorite of Aaron Rodgers. He proved that last year. No strong second wide receiver added by Green Bay. I know they drafted player, but it's still Devontae Adams, Robert Tonyan in the red zone. Otherwise, it's the running game, Aaron Jones running it in. But he'll be a number 2 option at the worst for Aaron Rodgers in the red zone. Currently going as overall pick number 95. So in a 12-team league, you're looking at an 8th round pick and yet getting the 3rd most fantasy points of any tight end in the same soft landing spot he was in last year with Aaron Rodgers. Okay, so Robert Tonyan, I think he's undervalued there as tight end 10. All right, up next, Evan Engram, tight end 13 currently, overall 125, round 10, round 11. Now, Evan Engram had a terrible year, and anybody who hears me on SiriusXM knows I am not an Evan Engram fan. Even though I'm a Giant fan, I am not an Evan Engram fan. Evan Engram, the next time he catches a pass in a big spot will be the first time Evan Engram catches a pass in a big spot. Targeted up, but there are things I liked. Okay, I don't like that they brought in Kyle Rudolph for Evan Ingram's sake. For the Giants' sake, that's fine. Kyle Rudolph, a professional tight end. Kyle Rudolph will take potentially some targets away from Evan Engram, as will Kenny Golladay. But nonetheless, this is not a super strong receiving core for the Giants. There's a lot of question marks there. But what's not questioned is that Evan Engram was targeted 109 times last season by the New York Giants, the second most in his career. He also had the second most receiving yards of his career last year, 654. Now, the problem with the 109 targets, there's no problem with that. The problem with Evan Engram was he only had 63 receptions on 109 targets. Terrible. Tight end being targeted that much, and you're only catching about 60% of those passes. And that's what I talk about. On average, it was about 4 receptions and 41 yards per game. So it was about 8.1 fantasy points per game. Evan Engram last season also had a career low of only 1 touchdown. He disappeared in the red zone, and that's a big issue there. But is that an aberration? Other years, I think he had 3, and 6 touchdowns. If he gives you 4 or 5 touchdowns, now you're potentially looking at a guy who's over almost 10 fantasy points per game. Even with all those flaws, he finished 15th overall in scoring for tight ends. He averaged 8.8 fantasy points per game. Evan Engram as tight end 13 is now being drafted as a backup tight end, and I'm okay with that at that point because there's still upside. He's not an old man. It's only year 5 for Evan Engram, okay? And he does have the ability to give you that 5 for 50 type of game, which all of a sudden is 10 fantasy points in a PPR format. Kyle Rudolph makes the position crowded, but if Evan Engram plays up to his ability, Kyle Rudolph won't be somebody who hurts Evan Ingram's value throughout the rest of the season. Jared Cook, now of the Los Angeles Chargers, replacing Hunter Henry, the ageless Jared Cook, okay, going as tight end 19, round 13 pick overall, 156. 37 receptions on 60 targets last year, and can still get down the field a little bit, right? More yards per reception than any other tight end I'm mentioning here today at 13.6 yards per reception on what should now be a very explosive Chargers passing offense. Keenan Allen is there now. Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert, and now Jared Cook, the veteran tight end, on a 1-year deal, okay? What I love about Jared Cook is he remains a red zone option. 7 touchdowns last season. Nothing to ignore, and I would expect a similar type of number for Jared Cook, even with the new team out of New Orleans and now with LA. Finished 18th in overall fantasy points for the tight end position, 8.5 points per game. Evan Engram, Jared Cook, veterans who provide you a soft landing spot as a tight end 2 on a team. If you're in a tight end premium format, I love them if you're drafting them as your second tight end. Now, there are 2 tight ends I love for their potential upside. These players are drafted as tight end 20 or lower, but have the ability to end up as top 12 tight ends. The first one is Adam Trautman, now of the Saints, replacing Jared Cook, year 2 for Trautman. Now, last season wasn't much, 15 catches on 16 targets, 171 yards, touchdown, 11.4 yards per reception, okay? However, he's replacing Jared Cook. He's replacing Jared Cook's 37 receptions, 60 targets. Yet a younger version of that Jared Cook on a Saints offense. Now, be mindful of this. Without Michael Thomas for the beginning of the season, with new quarterbacking, whether it's Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill, okay, Sean Payton has always been a fan of the tight end position. Jared Cook, Jimmy Graham before him, okay? And now Adam Trautman, the second-year player, steps into that role on a team that, without Michael Thomas, is missing playmakers down the field. Yes, still have Alvin Kamara. Callaway is there. But nonetheless, Adam Trautman in a position to be a chain mover and an end zone option. Okay, he's currently going as tight end 20. Overall, 158. Guys, sign me up there. Adam Trautman, you draft him as your second tight end, and you could find yourself... I'm not drafting him if I'm taking Kelsey. Like, I'm not taking a second tight end if I have Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, that elite group. I'm talking about if I'm drafting that tight end later, that 8 to 12 overall tight end. Now I take Adam Trautman as tight end 20 and potentially have somebody in a stepped-up role in that Saints offense, somebody who could give me 7 or 8 touchdowns easily in that offense. Adam Trautman, a ton of upside, and somebody you should be drafting in that round 13, 14 range at the tight end position. And finally, Anthony Firkser of the Tennessee Titans, currently going as tight end 24, grossly underdrafted right now. Round 16 overall, number 188. he becomes the starting tight end on Tennessee with Jonnu Smith headed to New England. Now, Anthony Firkser was not your typical backup tight end because he was still used frequently last season in that Tennessee offense. 53 targets. Jonnu Smith had 65. Firkser, the tight end, too, had 53. Okay, 39 receptions for Anthony Firkser, 41 last year for their number one tight end, Jonnu Smith. Okay, Jonnu Smith, 10.9 yards per reception. Anthony Firkser, 9.9. I mean, they were very similar players. In fact, you look at the yards per game, Firkser 24, Jonnu Smith about 30. Receptions, 2.5 to 3. The big difference was Jonnu Smith was the red zone darling of Ryan Tannehill at the tight end position. Jonnu Smith had 8 touchdown receptions last season while playing for Tennessee. Firkser only had 1. Okay, if Firkser can siphon just some of those targets, some of those receptions, and still gather those touchdowns away that Jonnu Smith is walking away from by going to New England, Anthony Firkser is a top 12 tight end. Already last season, he finished 26th overall in fantasy points at the tight end position, and that's as a tight end 2 on his own roster. So Corey Davis gone, okay, Jonnu Smith gone. I know Julio Jones is there, but let's be honest, Julio Jones has never been a touchdown monster in his days in Atlanta. The opportunity for red zone targets will be there for Anthony Firkser. Okay, I would expect close to 65 to 70 targets, even maybe more than Jonnu Smith had last season. Give me 70 targets, now you're looking at 50 receptions and probably close to 600 yards. He pulls in those 8 touchdowns, you've got a tight end 12 easily in Anthony Firkser, who's right now going in round 16. He is a tight end worth taking a flyer on, and one of my favorite tight ends to draft this draft season, okay? Robert Tonyan, love him as my tight end 1. Evan Engram, Jared Cook, nice tight end depth for where you are drafting them. And then there's the upside plays, Adam Trautman and Anthony Firkser with the Saints and Tennessee, respectively. 2 tight ends who are right now 20 and later who can easily become top 12 tight ends overall. All right, everybody, if you haven't, check out my ADP breakdowns of the quarterback, running back, and wide receiver positions right here on RotoBaller's YouTube channel or wherever you listen to the RotoBaller podcasts. And be sure to head over to rotoballer.com, like we mentioned, and check out all the great content and sign up for that premium package using the promo code ACES. Give me a follow on Twitter at Aniano Fantasy. Stay smart, stay safe. We'll see you next time, folks. Have a good one.